Hello and welcome to the Bear Bush Traders podcast. In this episode, Thor and I talk options with one of our BBT moderators, Jarad Champagne. Jarad is an amazing options trader, has been doing it for a couple of years, and also has put tons of courses together for our community so they can also learn how to trade options. We are very glad to have him on the show to talk about this topic. Let's get into episode number 15, the benefits of trading options with Jarad Champagne. Hey guys, welcome back to a Bear with Traders podcast with your hosts Carlos Moreta and Thor. And today we have a special guest joining us to talk about options and about his trading career and some of the things he's doing in the community to help traders become better at that. So Jarad will introduce you in just a second, but good morning, Thor. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, good morning, man. I'm doing fantastic. So good to hang out with you. So good to see everybody out there in YouTube land. You know, good to be talking with everybody out on the podcast side of things. I have to admit, this is probably the most stoked I've been about doing a podcast. I think having Jarad in here is going to be like really, really a lot of fun. You guys, we're going to be talking options, futures, comparing it to equities. I mean, if this isn't the podcast for you, then I don't know what we're going to do, because this is going to be some fun stuff. So with that being said, our man Jarad, welcome. Good to have you on. I feel like this has been a long time coming, having you hanging out with us and doing that, man. Good to see you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. Looking forward to talking with you.
Oh, it's our pleasure, man. Listen, so I'm sure a lot of the BBT family knows your background, but for those that are listening maybe to you for the first time or are not aware of your entire background, give us a little bit of an introduction, your trading career, and kind of some of the things you're working on as far as trading and options.
Okay. So started trading probably mid to late 2018. So at this point in time, 5 years young in the trading career. Started off learning very similar to a lot of equities traders, found different communities, kind of, scouting what my style and what sort of instruments I want to leverage for trading are going to be. And even found my way into options pretty early. I was technically an options trader in most of 2019, but I was also getting off the ground with day trading and using equities for day trading. Spent most of that time just kind of making my way into variable traders, obviously as a member first, and then just kind of picked up as a mod once Andrew saw the potential, and been with BBT ever since. As far as some of the recent developments, we're definitely looking at some option, classes, option chat room. There's a lot of new developments kind of in the pipeline, along with what we've built so far. So really looking forward to how this grows and exposing people to that type of market.
Yeah, I know. Like, one thing that's been just amazing with having you and then Megan, you're kind of your partner in crime here on the options side with BBT. Now BBT, which is not common, is offering an options room on, a few days a week in certain time frames. And that's just been amazing, because I know you're going to, back me up on this. I've seen a lot of retail day traders now are starting to move away from equities and are starting to move to the contractual type of instruments. They're finding tax benefits there. They're finding leverage benefits there, and all kinds of different ways to be a day trader without necessarily the PDT, without the other things. So what you and Megan and are now bringing into BBT, it's just fantastic. I have to admit to everybody out there, I haven't gone the options route yet, but one of these days I'm gonna get smart enough to learn how to do this. Every time I try, I get really close. I feel like I got it, then I got to back down a little bit. I trade futures, which is like options for dumb people, and it's a lot of fun. But we only have to worry about expiration, not price, which makes it a little bit easier.
That's a good point you're bringing up there, and I think there's a trader for every type. There's different type of traders, right? Some are going to do good in day trading. Some might find some difficulties there, and it's great to know that hey, there's so many different vehicles and so many things that you can trade. Jarad, tell us a little bit, maybe high level, some of the big differences between options and trading options and trading equities. Like, what can traders that maybe don't trade options might not be aware of?
Sure. So the main comparison that we often want to make is, as an equity trader, you have two choices. You can either be long or you can be short. Regardless of what the asset does, that's almost always about linear risk. So when you're long biased, if the stock goes down a certain amount versus going up, You're going to feel that just equally based on your position. With options, there's a little bit of a difference there. You can find your way into a long or short bias sort of position and still take on sort of a linear risk depending on how you set up the trade, but you can also be non-directional. Markets that are often choppy, range bound, or just kind of tight to basically take the risk off of the support or the resistance. Option traders can kind of navigate that a little bit better and use some more non-directional or just lower volatility types of strategies, all of which are unavailable to equity traders.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and that's probably the main difference that we want to highlight is the style of trading along with the market condition. As long as the market is long or short, you can find your way pretty simply into either side. But when the market's tight or when the market's very choppy, that's often where an option trade strategy kind of shines over equities.
Yeah, and I have to agree there big time because I'm a range trader, right? So I tend to trade the highs and lows off of the edges of ranges. That's where I find my bread and butter. I use like a Camarilla pivot system, and I've really had to detail out so much precision in order to be able to get, to not only time the equity trade properly, but it's to manage the risk of the equity trade properly as well. Because what you find in equity trades, it's like so many of us are correct about kind of where we want to get in and where we get out, but so few of us can actually survive the trade, like the journey from there to there. And I feel like what you're bringing to the table kind of gives a little bit more of a relaxed feel to that aspect of it, which is, okay, I know this is where I want to be in. I know this is kind of where I'm targeting, and now I can just let that do that, right? Where in an equity trade, it's like if it moves just a little bit too low, you got to get out. If it moves just a little bit too high, then you're squeezed, and it's just so difficult to time those. And I know a lot of traders have been struggling with finding timing on their trades, which maybe the options could help them out with.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the differences there, right, as well, and based on what you're saying too, Thor. And again, my options knowledge is very limited, so this will be a great learning session for me as well. And I got to make it to the chat room, which we'll talk about now as well, and kind of see what's happening there. So I noticed that many new traders like ourselves, not sure if you did too, we start with equities, right? Seems to be like the first attraction is let's trade equities. Is that because we look at option and it's like, okay, this looks a little bit complex, it's a lot more to learn, or it's just let's keep it simple, let's go up or down here? But sounds like options has a lot more options, has lots more options, right? But why is that? Did you start like that too, trading equities, and then you saw opportunities in options?
I did kind of have a 50-50 blend whenever I first started. And similar to you, I thought the barrier to entry for option education at the time was a little bit limited. Some of it I kind of facilitated through, just paywall kind of interaction, was able to organize courses, just accelerate that learning curve. But in general, if someone's coming into the market with limited to no trading experience, I find that equities has a lower barrier to entry. Once again, just the idea that there's really only two biases for markets long or short, and understanding when a market looks bullish or bearish allows that trader to kind of find success or maybe to sort of counter that move. But with options, understanding that you can be right on direction, you can even be right on your timing, and yet the profitability might not necessarily be in your favor. Along with sometimes, if you're extremely right about a move, it can be quite a exaggerated profit potential. Um, just as an example, let's say you have a market where you know where we're going to close on the day. So you kind of have an idea of where the previous day close will land for that session. If you're able to target that through option strategies, you can find ways to kind of risk very little, regardless of where you are on the chart. And then as long as we close there, the profit potential is almost 5 to 10 times what you risk. So less about the getting there, more about the staying there. And those kinds of
Exactly.
opportunities are very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think especially with so many people, especially to get the timing in day trading, you got to learn tape reading. You got to learn, get really, intimate with the order book and, develop really tight trade books and strategies, and most of it is just to navigate that ebb and flow as you get to where you kind of like, oh, I knew it. We're so often we're like, oh, I knew it. That's where it was going to go, but you didn't quite have the ability to hold out for the rest of the journey. So I think a lot of people that maybe are struggling with equities, with just finding that consistency, might really resonate with maybe a little bit more of a relaxed approach that way too. I know a buddy of mine who started doing some more options, thanks to you and Megan, actually, has actually said he finds his trading a lot less stressful. He says he goes in there, he looks for specific opportunities, he kind of puts on a couple of them, and just says, all right, now it's George Foreman time. He like sets back, set it and forget it. Like I'm just ready to hang out and let's just see if these mature. Otherwise, I'm done. And I was just like, wow, that sounds all really awesome. So I was like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great.
One of the things I notice when I talk to options traders, the first thing they say is, I don't know why you're still trading equities, right? This is so much better here, because the one thing they bring up is that I know exactly how much I'm going to lose. Like I know my exact risk. And I tried playing around before our podcast on a Friday, getting ready for this podcast. I tried playing around doing an options trade on Interactive Brokers. They got this options, what they call it. It's like a wizard. So it tells you, what do you want to do? Volatility, up or down. It's like very step by step. And I still couldn't get through. I have to do more homework on that. But I wanted to say, I think this ticker is going to be at this price and it tells you the different type of expirations you could pick out. So it's really, I hear basically what you're saying, Thor. The stress is not there because you're not watching every tick. It's not as important as it is with equities, right? You kind of have a big picture idea depending on your time frame, and then you can select. It tells you exactly what your maximum risk is going to be, what your potential, what your profit gains potential can be. So I think that attracts traders quite a bit because they have a sense of, hey, this is all I could lose, and I have time on my hands. Is that really the case there?
For most strategies, I would say that's true. The basic strategies are almost always about a certain premium price that you're paying for the contract itself. And whether you're long or short, you're basically giving yourself a certain amount of time to have that speculative sort of move take place. Um, Even defining certain spreads still carries a risk defined aspect to the trade. So something like a call or put vertical would be a kind of very general example. And you're still bullish or bearish, the cost significantly goes down. But at the end of the day, you're limiting the amount of potential profit you can make by keeping your risk relatively low. And there's a bunch of ways to kind of set those up with not only different expirations, but where you're placing the strikes, how much width is between the call, purchase call, and the sold call, and just these little techniques that can kind of make you navigate throughout whatever market you're trading. So I think each of those kind of has that attractive nature, so long as you like limited risk. There are ways, of course, to take on a little bit more risk, and with that comes potential for more reward. But as always, the undefined nature of some of those strategies requires management and a little bit of an understanding of when to get out. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Like the thing too that I find really interesting when you're talking about this too is, a lot of what's going on with, if you're an equities trader and you're like, oh man, the options thing just too much, but it's good to understand this because even as an equities trader, you need to understand that options fuel dramatic amounts of movement in the market. So it's like you're an equities trader. If you understand where these strikes are, where these certain areas are at, then you're going to find areas where you can expect higher than normal amounts of order flow, right? So it's like, even if you're looking at the book and you're like, hey, I don't really have that many orders up here. Well, if it goes to a certain level, there will be, right? And it's not like there's not it could be. It's no, there will be. You will move into an area where mathematically computers will kick on. They'll start doing certain things at certain prices in certain ways. And, a lot of you people probably remember all the Wall Street bet stuff that happened, back where we had these huge, basically options events, that caused massive squeezes on what are otherwise worthless tickers. But because you made the computers do the things the computers have to do, You got these crazy events. That's when I think I truly realized the power of options and how they can really, really move things around and really make things spicy. I was like, man, that's crazy just watching how that happened. I got to be a part of history and watch that, firsthand, and it was
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
amazing.
Friends, I hope you're finding tons of value in this conversation in regards to options. And if you're interested in trading options, check out barebootraders.com, where you can see all the courses that Jarad alongside Megan have put together. I would like to take this time to remind you, you can always reach us via email at podcast@barebootraders.com. We love to hear from our listeners on comments and feedback, plus possible ideas for future episodes. If you haven't done so already, we really appreciate you taking the time to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or any other platform that you're listening in. Now let's get back to this conversation with Jarad. We saw I read an article about how weekly options have really increased the volume of the market, right? And it has been something that is being more embraced by traders now. So are you seeing, based on, you have your chat room that you started within BBT about, options 3 days a week. You also do engineering the markets, which gives us a big picture of the overall market, where things sit. And that's happening every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And for those that are not actually, no, excuse me, Monday
Yeah,
through
Monday through
Thursday. Monday
Thursday.
through Thursday. Monday,
Right.
Wednesday, and Friday is the options room. So all this will be
Correct.
on the show notes as well, friends. And engineering the markets, you do Monday through Thursday, and you give us a big picture of the overall market and what's happening there. So my question is, are you seeing people gravitate more to options and loving it more than actually trading equities when they dabble into it?
I think so. It depends on the person, and the feedback is kind of coming in waves as we either release new information or just kind of organize things differently. But in general, especially with the chat room, we can kind of see numerically which members are joining which chat room.
Mm-hmm.
And there's at least a good 10% of, kind of the core BBT chat room group that likes seeing the option chat room. They like learning new styles, new techniques, and just understanding what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We
I know there's a
found
couple
that,
of members that are going in there that they want to just be there because they want to hear your and y'all's analysis as you're
right,
preparing
that
for your
too.
trade. Right? He's like, I'm an equity trader, but I'm actually hanging out in the options room right
Mm-hmm.
now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when Jarad starts saying, "Hey, we're at a crazy extension here on the market. If this happens, we're probably going to see this. If this happens, we're probably going to see this." He's like, I can immediately add that to my thesis and say, okay,
Hmm.
so if the market goes down, I was already thinking about shorting Apple. So if Jared's saying the market's probably going to turn on Qs right now, I'm already thinking about shorting Apple. So new low, let's go, right? And then
Yeah,
he's in it. So I've heard all kinds of, not just from the options, but from people saying, just again being aware of how the options are affecting the
Yeah,
market's
equities. Yeah,
performance, even
yeah.
as an equities trader, and then
right.
staying sharp,
And
learning new things. I mean, that's super helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
and I think, like always, it's hard to be purely directional when the market's not yet moving, but when you see it or when it triggers, the potential. Usually those are the best prices, but you have to be a little early or anticipatory of a big move. Options, is kind of a corollary to what we're talking about, is really about kind of stepping up when things don't quite look right
Mm-hmm.
and putting on that trade with the understanding that you've got some room. The market could put some pressure on you and you're still okay because of how you defined your risk profile. As long as that's part of your trade thesis and you can manage it, when the market, hopefully validates your thesis, it's very easy to get out profitably. And sometimes it doesn't even take too much of a move. Um, we've been finding a lot of success with things like selling premium at different levels simply because we don't really need the market to move away. We just can't have it keep going in that, core direction. So, inflection points, support, resistance, extensions, whatever it happens to be, just finding those moments. And I think that's
Yeah,
where a
you don't
directional
really have to
equity
worry about,
trader.
is it a long or a short. It's like, is it long? Well, it might not be a short right now, but it's definitely not a long, right? So
Exactly.
I can play short here, and even if it basically just stalls and drops
Yeah.
just a hair,
Then you still win.
I can still profit, even if ever so slightly here. But the risk management, obviously, great,
Yeah.
because it's you know when you're wrong very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I
and
love
for
that.
thinking about the way I trade, obviously, when the market's choppy, that's the toughest time as an equities trader because
Hmm.
I need
Hmm.
the market to move. You need you to move somewhere and drag things with you, or the stock to move. Right? If it's going sideways, I'm going to have a tough time. So I know you do both, Jared. Are you doing that now, where you look at the market every morning, which I know you do, as far as looking at the overall market, and you say, you know what, the way this market condition is right now, I'm going to be doing options. Looks like for the next 2 weeks or something, or is it a combination of, hey, the market is trending, bullish, I'm going to do some equities trades?
Right. I think it's a little bit of a blend right now because in my bag of tricks as far as option strategies, I probably have 10 or 12 common techniques that I like to use. Those are going to often be multi-day, and if they're used intraday, they're going to be a little simple. Calls and puts are fine for the intraday trader. A little bit of vertical trade if markets are a little bit more range bound. And some of the systems that we're familiar with, any sort of BBT type strategy or just common technical strategies, fitting that mold is viable for the intraday trader. When I see the market in a condition where I think a swing trade is more viable, just because
Yeah, yeah,
it might not be today's trade, but it's in the next couple days. That is something where I like just setting it up a little early, giving it 2 to 3 weeks to kind of play out, and watching the market prove me wrong or not. So um, those are usually some of the best opportunities because as a day trader, we're always limited by the time factor. But
yeah,
in
yeah.
general, we know that a pullback on the daily is undefined. As long as it keeps pulling back or can't break that swing high, you might still be valid in some sort of overextension kind of trade. So
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I get that 100%. One of the things that I see is that, if traders are moving over to options, right? They're, like I mentioned before, they're looking at us saying, "Hey, why you haven't moved yet? There's so much better opportunities here." What I like about this is there's so many different vehicles. For example, like there's people that struggle with day trading. We know that for a fact.
Hmm.
90% of people fail. I don't know how they got that number, and I always say I would love to see, plus 5 years. Like I want to see who failed after 5 years. Before 5 years,
Mhm.
it's okay if you fail because trust me, it's unrealistic to expect that you're going to become a profitable trader below 3 to 5 years. So I want to see the
Right.
percentage after that, right? But there's just shows you that there's different ways to trade this market. If you're not good at day trading, if you're struggling there, you have all these great tools right now, all these great courses available. Engineering the markets, you got the chat room, you have the options course in the learning center. People can go there and try something different. So you can kind of
Hmm.
expand to see if you're better at this than not, because I believe that not everyone could be a day trader, not everyone could be an options trader, but you got to try them both to see what you're better at, right? I think that's very
Yeah,
important.
Exactly.
absolutely. I mean, not everyone can
Exactly.
be a swing trader. You know what I mean? Not everyone likes exposing themselves to risk in a long-term portfolio. I mean, it's very valuable to, and we've talked about this in many of a prior podcasts. It's very valuable to find an edge, that fits your personality type and,
Right.
and kind of how you enjoy playing the market. I know for me, I like when I'm playing the market now because I trade futures contracts. I when I'm playing the market, I like to use futures. When I'm playing a ticker, I like playing the ticker. So like if Apple has, Apple came out and merged with, or like when AI, or what was it, AMD and Microsoft came out saying they were doing an AI deal, right? That was an obvious catalyst on those tickers. So I wanted to play those equities. I wanted to play those specific tickers. Although, but in a different day, the entire industry was oversold, right? Or sorry, overbought in this instance. Jared, and for big plug for engineering the markets, by the way. I know it's a little early for some of you people for some reason, but if you are not taking the time, if you have it and you're not checking it out, Jared has been like screaming into the dark abyss about the divergence that's been happening between the SPY and the Qs basically over the past like couple of weeks. And if you were paying attention to that, like I was, I shorted basically the Qs via futures MNQ. I shorted MNQ a couple days ago at our CAM R6. So, and I've had, a multi-hundred point move basically now over the past couple of the days. And basically all that's happening right now is the SPY and the Qs are basically coming home. right? They're moving closer towards each other and trying to find some balance and correlation. But if you were paying attention to this stuff, this guy right here is saying, you would be very dialed in. You certainly wouldn't be buying cues yesterday or the day before, which people obviously were, because I looked at Bookmap and I could see buying. So there were people buying the dip yesterday, buying the dip day before. And now today they're in pain, right? Trying, just clawing on and hoping. And it's like, but if you'd have paid attention, you would have known we were in a selling range. We had a massive divergence. We had lots of volume there. I mean, everything said we were at least going to do a pullback. Right. And Jared's like, get ready. We're going to have a pullback. I think it was 3 days ago. I think maybe it was 2 days. He was like, we're going to have a pullback. I mean, it was like literal statement. And then boom, pullback, pull up a chart. Tell me I'm wrong. Or, so it's spectacular stuff. So shameless plug here for engineering the markets. I know it's a BBT product, so of course we're going to plug it anyway. But this one specifically, there are paid services, news people, talking heads and stuff out there, and they are not giving you any information about how to trade the market. They're basically just hyping you.
Yeah.
If you've got
100%.
the time, you want to be in, not anywhere, engineering the markets. It's a great show on those mornings. Bring those numbers up, like it, subscribe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
Jared, so if someone is starting out brand new, will you recommend they can start straight out in options, or is like starting in equities like a base to kind of get some basic information, or is there a way? Because I get emails on or messages on Twitter, and by the way, you can always email us at podcast@bearwoodtraders.com. But I'll get an email asking, "Hey, I'm not available to trade in the market open. I'm either, I'm on the road, I'm traveling a lot, I'm not at a computer. What else can I do?" And I always tell them, "Well, you could try swing trading." But I never refer them to options. Is that something somebody can set up during off hours and kind of let it play out into the market open? How does would that work for a person like that?
Right. So the options are really just a tool to kind of interact with the market. It really isn't necessarily a massive style change unless you're applying some of those different strategies. And in general, a new trader should just learn the basics of trading, whether it be a little bit of technical analysis, the psychology behind it, the technology and tools just to interact with the market itself. All of that's going to be applicable whether they decide to go to equities or options as their instrument. And a new trader might find some success with options because some of the capital requirements are a little bit lower. To interact with certain stocks, you need at least a little bit of buying power and maybe the margin behind it. Interacting with certain stocks also kind of carries the overnight risk. If you're going to, short something overnight, your margin requirements change. And being a bear, just as a swing trader can sometimes just be difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, as your account is smaller. Newer traders, we assume, have a smaller account. They're going to want to continue to trade and learn. If their capital is held up in one or two positions and they're maxed out, then at that point they'd have to liquidate something to kind of keep trading. So those are some of the benefits, and just a general assessment of, can a trader pick the right instrument for both their financial constraints, along with the fact that they're still learning how to trade outright. And I think options is just, like I said, more of a blend of, you want to learn how to trade equities, you want to understand how stocks move, but in understanding that, you can apply a different instrument to it and sometimes maximize the move itself.
That is a perfect explanation. Yeah.
One of the things, Carlos, that I've kind of found, and I know you've been doing this for around a half a decade. And, I've been doing this for around a half a decade. Jared's been doing this for around a half a decade. I'm not trying to say there's a common time frame, but I said the same thing 3 times for 3 people. So I kind of now, but I think what's really, really important here for everyone to understand, we had a member in the chat room yesterday during our 1 o'clock mentoring. They brought up that they had been trading for 9 months or 10 months, and they just felt like they were hoping to have progressed further, faster, and to be doing something. And I just want to point that out in this moment, that, all 3 of the, the people who are sitting here in front of you talking to you about this, we're telling you all these things, but it's all, it takes you time. There is not going to be a shortcut. Options isn't going to give you the shortcut. equities, futures, nothing gives you the shortcut. Nothing will help you out with just knowing, the things you need to know. You need to understand what makes the market tick, what makes it move. You need to know participation, volume, price levels, basic analysis, fundamentals, dividends. A basic knowledge of options, even for an equities trader, is a must, right? You need to at least understand these basic things, what makes futures work, all of this stuff. And if you find like you're not looking for that information, then you're really cutting yourself short for some very obvious advantages you're going to carry over a very large portion of the retail community. That you can't, it's hard to just pull up a Robinhood app and do this stuff. You know what I mean? It's if you're
Time
dealing
and
with this
see.
kind of stuff, you're dealing with people who are spending time really learning how to do this and analyze it. And that's just putting you in a different just a different genre of trader, if you will. Because I think retailers are even now starting to split into, we laughingly call them like the ape index. You know what I mean? But we're basically even now starting to say we have upper level versus lower level retail traders. We're all plankton. I mean, let's not, get too grand or anything like that. But, you're starting to see now you kind of have it's kind of like the professional gambler versus the gambler that just goes to Vegas on the weekend. We're the pro gambler. Because we've got the strategies and the things in place where, the others are just going in there to have a good time. But you will start to see more and more, I think, push towards options in these contracts, especially. And again, we talk about there's also a tax, benefit to utilizing contracts. There's in certain ways, futures and options versus equities. There's some different capital gains implications that are in there depending on which underlying you're trading. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. If you're making good money with your retirement, so you don't want to blow a whole lot more capital gains in here. You just want to make a little bit more, that might be a nice way for you to still, like my buddy Mark, he kind of started doing it because he wanted to keep his brain nimble. He's retired. He wants to work with his account. He wants to day trade. He's been doing some options lately just because he's like, man, I just want to learn and be nimble. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have, to have different tools like you guys mentioned, right? To be able to say, hey, this condition I can do this. I don't just have to do this one style. And it's great to have options. And this is why time and seat, no matter what you're doing, options, forex, or, crypto, time and seat, man. So don't go bouncing around. I never recommend this. Don't go bouncing around from different vehicles thinking you're going to find the secret sauce in a very short period of time. Options is not the secret sauce. Nothing is. You need to put your time and see and know that there's options out there to try different things, right? So I really like that. Jarad, man, I have learned a lot today. So thank you for coming on. But before we hop off here, I just want to remind everyone, Jarad is doing Engineering the Market show every Monday to Thursday. That's it. That is in our chat room starting at 8 a.m. Every market open. He's also, when the market is open, he's also doing, him and Megan are doing the options chat room between, that's from 9 to 11, right? Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And this is what they actually are giving you a live analysis throughout the market open, right? So definitely to take a look at that. And man, your birthday just passed. So
that's what I was gonna say.
A few days
happy
ago.
Birthday.
So happy birthday, my friend. We appreciate.
I think he turned like 25 or something like that. It's awesome.
Yeah, plus or minus 8 years. Y'all let you
can rent a car now.
I guess.
I mean, it's awesome.
Very nice. But yeah, you're gonna say something before we hopped into the birthday comment.
Yeah, so the option chat room 9 to 11. We also do a midday session, and depending on which portion of that chat room session, we're kind of talking different things. Morning trade, morning analysis, just kind of walking through the first hour and a half of the open session. And then the second hour, we're trying to do either a structured lecture or some sort of teaching opportunity. So even as a new trader, options or otherwise, you can come in there, feel free to ask questions, and we'll be more attentive to kind of looking over things and even discussing some trade opportunities.
Man, that's amazing. Again, guys, if you're not part of a community, I don't know how you're not part of a community. If you're a trader, no matter what you're trading, options, equities, you got to join something. And not because I'm part of BBT, but definitely check out barebootraders.com. There's just a lot of great stuff happening there. And this is all part of your membership. So Definitely check it out. Brother, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. We're definitely going to have you back again soon. So if anybody has questions for Jarad, send it at podcast@barebootraders.com, and we would love to hear from you guys. Make sure that you're hitting that comment, thumbs up, or like on whatever podcast or platform you're listening in. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.